DocuSign stock surged 20% in early June after an impressive quarterly report, and a continuation of that move to the upside translates to a roughly 40% gain for the month. DocuSign CEO Dan Springer is here with a look at how the software company is positioned for its next phase of growth. Thanks for joining me today, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
Now, a lot has happened since we last spoke in April 2020, and it seems like the business is continuing to pick up steam with estimate-beating quarterly numbers reported this June and solid guidance as well, suggesting the strong growth is expected to continue. And you've said you see the implementation of DocuSign services as a strategic priority for the business world at this point.
I think that's exactly right. Yeah, we were quite pleased with the results from Q1. We had not sort of expected maybe to be quite at that 58% revenue growth. So that was positively received, as you mentioned. But I think the core underlying trends are just as you said. We really see that the demand for people in this anywhere economy to have digital transformation is only increasing. So while we were pleasantly somewhat surprised at that strength, we're not surprised at all that the underlying demand is there for DocuSign.
Well, let's dig a little bit deeper into that. What trends are you seeing on the customer retention and customer acquisition front, especially as we're getting to the other side of this pandemic?
Well, it's interesting. Both sides were quite strong. We had a record from a standpoint of our customer retention. We use that net revenue retention number. We hit 125%. And of course, the range we've seen in the past, we sort of thought that would be about 112 up to about 118, 119. Last couple of quarters, we've been above that. And then at 125%, that significantly exceeded the rates we've had in the past, which is fantastic. And what we find at DocuSign is when our existing customers adopt the software, they get a tremendous return on that investment, and they tend to buy more. They tend to find more use cases to use the software. So not surprising. On the new customer front, it's kind of a milestone for us. We just announced that we passed 1 million paying customers, which is great. And I think we're seeing that same phenomena. The companies that haven't started that transformation, haven't sort of really brought their business forward, into a digital model, are starting to do that again at record numbers. So we see kind of both sides of the equation being pretty strong right now.
And the company's business outside the US contributed to a considerable chunk of DocuSign's total revenue in the first quarter, over 20%. So give us your assessment of the international market, which seems like an area of focus for you at this time.
It absolutely is. And to be fair, we're below where we want to be, right? So I think for a company, we talked about being about $2 billion in our guidance for this year in revenue. I'd like to see us significantly above that 21% outside of the US. So we have work to do. But obviously the growth, over 80% growth out of international in the quarter was quite strong. We're making big investments there. Europe is the market where we're making, I think, our biggest investment and where we see our strongest performance right now. But I also look at LATAM and looking at Asia Pacific and Japan, we do see growth really across the board. I think our biggest challenge is that there's a realization that there's so many markets for us to go into. So it's sort of that sequencing and prioritization to make sure we're putting the right focus in the right places. But I think you'll see us continue to put up big numbers and have international sort of take a bigger and bigger piece of that overall share.
Some interesting trends there. Now, e-signature is still, of course, the core of your business at this stage, but with all the different use cases that you're seeing for all sorts of industries, what's next on the horizon in the agreement landscape that's ripe for disruption, you think?
Well, I think the real answer is you can't really talk about DocuSign without talking about e-signature, right? That is clearly what brought us to the dance. And I don't think it's going to change anytime in the near future. And we love it. I've said since we went public that we could continue to grow at high growth rates if we only did e-signature. But we saw from our customers that there was this opportunity to serve their needs more broadly. And what we've now created is the DocuSign Agreement Cloud. So not just signing, but also preparing those agreements, routing them around, having them integrate through APIs with your other software. And then, of course, managing that sort of repository of agreements and using advanced analytics to really get insight to your business. Those are all the areas that we see the growth on top of just continued expansion of e-signature.
And when you talk about physical to digital, one area of interest is notary solutions. What is DocuSign doing on that front?
Yeah, so notary has been one of these areas where we've had so many calls from customers to say, what you did for e-signature, could you please do it for notary, or what you did for physical signature with e-signature, could you do for notary? So we made a pretty big investment in the area. We actually just announced that we've gone to full remote online notary capability, just rolled that out. We're excited about that. And remember, we were starting with what we talked about last time as we call first party notary. And that's where a company, like a big financial institution, has their own notaries in-house. And then after that, we'll be rolling out third-party notary at the end of this year, where people have the ability, two people, you and I, decide we want to notarize a transaction. We can go to a local notary. Instead of having to physically go there, we can access that same notary, but all online in a remote model. And that'll be coming later this year. So it's going to be a big growth area for us. And again, part of this is a business growth area, but part of it is we see it as sort of our mission to help make the world more agreeable. And to make that easier for people to do agreements, we think notary is a key part to fulfilling that mission.
Now, you've talked about the big market share lead that DocuSign has in this space. You've made a number of strategic acquisitions. The international business, as we said, is in early days, but encouraging numbers there. As we progress through the back half of 2021, what do you think is going to be the key to unlocking even more growth at DocuSign?
Well, interestingly for us, we don't think there's going to be like a big M&A play, because there really aren't large at-scale players in the overall agreement cloud space like DocuSign. So when we do acquisitions, to your point, we'll probably continue to do what we've done in the past, much smaller deals that are sort of tuck-in, where we see someone that's built some fantastic technology that we think we probably could build ourselves, but they've got a head start. And they've also built some subject matter expertise and domain knowledge around the space. And we say, our customers need that in the agreement cloud, like we did with Spring, like we did with Seal. We'll probably do some of those little tuck-ins in the future. But in terms of what's really going to drive the growth, well, those things will accelerate our business. The core growth are the core sort of aspects we've had to date. There's so much pent up demand and unsort of fulfilled TAM. And the way I think about it this way is, we talked about the idea about a $25 billion TAM for signature and about another $25 billion for the rest of the agreement cloud. As I just mentioned, we're talking about $2 billion of revenue. We're very small penetration in that market. And as you mentioned up front, we are the dramatic market share leader in our core business. So from that standpoint, we've got a long way to go just with what brought us here versus having to go to a new level of growth levers. It's going to be a lot more of the same.
Well, the June quarterly report definitely got a lot of eyeballs on Wall Street, and we are going to be paying close attention to DocuSign as we progress throughout the year. Dan, thank you so much for your insights today.
Thanks again. Cheers.
Hi there, thanks so much for watching Investing Strategies on our YouTube channel. If you want more executive interviews and analysis of key trends to watch, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date.